My son looked me in the eye one day and said it. Dad, you're weak. I just stopped. Right there.
Couldn't say anything back.
Just stood there like an idiot. And even now, when I think about that moment, there's this weird feeling that hits me. 'Cause in that second, I made a choice.
I felt angry, like really angry, but I didn't let it out. Why? That's what this is about.
But just so you know, the story doesn't start there. It ends there. I gotta go back. Way back.
Like 30, 40 years back. I don't even know how to count time anymore, honestly. My son was so small then. 5, 6 maybe.
It was summer, I think. We were in the backyard. He was learning to ride a bike. You know that story, right?
Every dad's got one.
A little kid wobbling on 2 wheels, and there's you right beside him, trying not to let go. He fell. Not the first time, but it still happened.
His knee was bleeding, scraped up pretty good, and he started crying. Not like a little whimper. I mean, the real thing.
That broken, hiccuping kind of cry where your whole world just ends. You know what I mean?
I ran over and picked him up.
Looked at his knee. It wasn't much, honestly. Just a scrape. But to him, it was the end of everything. You okay?
I asked, but he just kept crying. Then, I don't know, something in me just kicked in. I don't think I was being mean, but I was firm, you know? I put him down, stood him up straight. Look at me, I said.
I'm going to tell you something, and you're going to remember this for the rest of your life. You hear me? He nodded, trying to stop crying, his little teeth clenched tight. You fall, you get back up. That's how the story goes.
That's not the beginning, that's just part of the story.
You get back up?
That's when it starts. He didn't really get it.
But that wasn't the point. I put him back on that bike.
Kept my hand on his shoulder. Do you know what strength is?
I asked him.
It's not about not falling. It's about getting up again. He tried again. Wobbled, fell, cried again.
But this time, and I remember this clear as day, this time it was different.
'Cause he knew I was there watching.
And he knew something else too, without me saying it. I wasn't going to pick him up and tell him it was okay to quit. He had to show me something. He had to show me he could stand back up. So he did. And again.
And again.
Days went by, weeks. Slowly, the crying stopped being the main thing. He stopped falling as much. And somewhere in there, something shifted. He didn't just learn to ride a bike. Something harder got built into him. Kind of steel, maybe.
Or just
knowing that when you hit the ground, you don't stay there. Back then, I didn't have a fancy name for what I was doing. Nowadays, they'd probably call it resilience training or psychological toughness. But I just knew one thing. My kid wasn't going to be the kind of person who stays down. Life's going to knock him over plenty of times. I could feel that in my bones. So I wanted him to know from small that falling down isn't the end. It's just the middle. Then time did what time does. It just accelerates, like you're watching a movie on fast forward to middle school.
high school.
Friends, teachers, the whole thing. He got into sports.
Played football.
He wasn't the best player, but there was something there, something I recognized. In team games, he was always there.
In the middle of it. Not backing out, not waiting for someone else to push forward. Just pushing university. That's when things got real for him.
Good scores, got into a solid school.
No big surprise.
But the world around him changed.
Everything got harder, more competitive.
The rules of the game shifted, and me?
I was getting older. I won't give you the whole sad story. You don't need it. Just
life was happening. I was working less, getting tired easier, noticing that my back hurt after a long day. The usual stuff. But here's the thing about being a parent. You don't really stop worrying. You just worry about different things. He finished university and, man, that kid, he did good. Got a job at some company. The kind of place where you wear a tie and sit in meetings. Made decent money. Got a car. Moved out. Started dating. The whole adult thing, basically. I was proud. I'm not ashamed to say I was proud as hell. Years kept moving. 5, 6, 7 years maybe. He got promoted. Then promoted again. Made more money. Better apartment. The kind of life that looks good from the outside, you know. I'd see him sometimes. He'd visit on weekends, bring his girlfriend, later, his wife. They were happy, seemed like. I'd cook something, we'd sit and eat, and he'd tell me about work. Big deals, important meetings, people who worked under him now. Sometimes, when he was talking about these things, I'd watch his face,
And I'd see something.
a kind of
Hardness, maybe? Not mean, but like sharp.
the way he talked about people who didn't perform, who couldn't handle pressure. There was no room in his world for weakness. Not anymore. I remember one time, I think his wife was in the other room, I asked him, "You happy?" He looked at me like the question didn't make sense.
Happy? Dad, I'm doing great.
You see where I am? But that's not what I asked him. Anyway, I let it go.
'Cause what do I know, right? I'm the old guy.
The world was different when I grew up. Maybe he was right to be the way he was.
Maybe that's what it takes now, but I could feel something. A distance. Not like he didn't love me, I don't think that. It was more like he didn't need me anymore.
Not like he did when he was small. And I guess that's supposed to happen. That's supposed to be the goal.
Raise them so they don't need you.
Let them fly, all that stuff they tell you, but nobody tells you what that feels like. So then this day comes. I'm not going to drag this out. Let me just set the scene. We're having dinner.
Him, his wife, me.
I was older now, definitely older. My hands shake sometimes when I hold a fork. Nothing serious, but
You notice it.
he's talking about work, always about work, some big project that's making him stressed. His wife's trying to be supportive, asking questions.
And me, I'm just eating, listening, trying to keep up. Then he says something about a guy on his team.
A manager below him or something like that. He's frustrated because this guy isn't aggressive enough. He's too soft, my son said. He's worried about making people feel good instead of getting results.
That's not how the world works. And I don't know why, but something in me just reacted. Maybe it was because I was tired.
Maybe it was because I hadn't slept well. Or maybe it was something else. You know, I said. Sometimes being strong is knowing when not to push. He looked at me.
Actually stopped talking and looked right at me. What? He said. Like he didn't hear me right. I said, sometimes the strongest thing is knowing when to... Dad! He cut me off.
And his voice, man, his voice was different. Sharp. You don't understand how business works.
People like that?
They don't survive.
They get eaten alive.
The world doesn't care about your feelings. I set my fork down. I could feel his wife getting uncomfortable. She was looking at her plate suddenly. Maybe, I said. But I know a little something about surviving. He laughed.
Actually laughed. Not a real laugh. That fake one that means you think something's stupid. Yeah.
And how's that working out for you, Dad?
You're retired. Working part-time at the hardware store because you couldn't afford to just stop. You take medicine for your heart now.
Your hands shake. You can barely walk some mornings. Each word was like,
I don't know, like small cuts.
not deep, but precise. Like he knew exactly where to aim. I didn't say anything. His wife was staring at her food. The only sound was the clock on the wall. So yeah, he said, and his voice was calmer now, which somehow made it worse. You can tell me about surviving, but you? He paused.
You're not exactly the picture of strength, Dad. He looked away.
You're weak, that word, weak. I don't remember much after that. I remember his wife asking if anyone wanted more water.
I remember saying something about being tired.
I remember him checking his phone, not really looking at me. And I remember sitting there in the quiet trying to figure out what just happened. We finished dinner fast after that. They left early, had to work the next morning, he said. I walked them to the door, hugged them both like nothing happened. He didn't hug me tight, and when they left, I just stood there listening to their car drive away. Then I sat down.
In my living room in the dark, just sat there. What was I feeling? I don't know if I can explain it right.
It wasn't just hurt, though it was that. It wasn't just anger, though that was there too.
It was more like confusion.
Like someone switched the lights off, and I couldn't find my way around my own house. My son thought I was weak. My son, the one I taught to get back up every time he fell. The one I told over and over that strength isn't about not falling. The one I showed, through everything I did, that you keep going no matter what. He thought I was weak. And the worst part?
I understood exactly how he got there. I did something that night.
I don't know if it was smart or stupid, but I sat down and I actually thought about it.
About what I'd done.
About who I'd become to him. Because here's the thing nobody tells you about parenting. You can get it right and still lose. You can do everything the way you think is best and then watch your kid become something that scares you a little. Not evil or anything. He wasn't evil, but hard, closed off.
Someone who sees weakness in other people and just moves past them. And I had to ask myself, did I do that? I told him to get back up.
That part was right. But somewhere along the way, maybe I taught him that staying down was shameful. That pain was something to push through, not feel. That struggling meant you were failing. That asking for help was weak. I sent him out into the world with armor on, and I never taught him how to take it off. So when he looked at his old dad, tired, his hands shaking, not as strong as I used to be, he didn't see someone who lived a good life and earned his rest. He saw weakness, a warning of what happens when you stop fighting. I realized that night that he'd forgotten something, not on purpose. He just forgot. And I had to figure out what I was going to do about it. Now I could have called him up.
Could have been angry, made him feel bad about it.
Could have given him some big speech about respect and how he should talk to his parents. A lot of guys would do that, but that's not what I did. See, because here's something they don't really explain when you become a father. The biggest battle isn't with the world.
It's not even with your kids, really.
The biggest battle is with yourself, with your anger, your pride, your need to be right.
That's the real fight. And I'd been training for that my whole life. I thought about that kid in the backyard, the one who'd just learned to ride a bike.
What did he need from me that night when he was crying, covered in dirt and blood? Did he need me to yell at him? To tell him he should have done better? To make him feel worse? No, he needed to know that falling wasn't the end. That someone believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself. My son, at that moment, was falling too. He just didn't know it yet, so I made a choice. I decided that getting angry, proving him wrong, making him feel the sting of his words, that would be the easy way. That would be
weak, actually. Because anyone can be angry.
Anyone can lash back. But staying quiet, staying calm, understanding that he was exactly where he needed to be in his own journey, that took something different. That took real strength. Days went by.
I didn't call him right away. I just
gave it space.
And in that space, something interesting happened. I kept living. That's all.
Got up in the morning, took my medicine, went to work at the store like I always do. Helped customers, made jokes with the younger guys there, fixed things. I wasn't trying to prove anything to him. I was just doing what I always do. But I realized something while I was living my life, not thinking about our fight. I was actually pretty content. Tired sometimes, sure. My back hurt, my hands shook a little. But I knew who I was.
I wasn't running from anything.
Wasn't trying to be something I'm not. The fight was over, in a way. I'd already proven everything I needed to prove. To myself, anyway, and that was enough. A week later, he called. Just a regular call. Asked how I was doing, made small talk. Didn't mention our fight. We talked for 10 minutes, and that was that. He was busy, had to go, but I heard something in his voice that wasn't there before.
Not guilt exactly, but something like he was wondering about that conversation. Rolling it around in his head. I didn't push it. Didn't bring it up.
Just told him I loved him and to take care of himself. After that night, I started thinking about what strength really is. And I realized I'd been wrong about something for a long time.
Not completely wrong, but incomplete. I taught my son to get back up.
That's important.
That's real.
But I didn't teach him why. I didn't teach him that sometimes the people who love you most are the ones who are falling too, who are struggling.
Who need you just as much as you need them. I didn't teach him that a hero is someone who can stand in the rain and still help someone else get dry.
That power isn't about dominating others, it's about lifting them up. That the strongest people in the world are the ones who've been broken and learned to love anyway. I gave him armor, but I didn't give him a heart to protect. And whose fault is that?
Mine. I was doing what I thought was right, but I was afraid too.
Afraid that if I showed him softness, he'd turn into something weak. Afraid that if I let him see me struggle, he wouldn't respect me anymore. So I just kept pushing him forward, kept telling him to get back up, and never really explained that sometimes, just sometimes, Falling is exactly where wisdom begins. The real battle
wasn't against the world.
The real battle was the one inside of him. The one between the man I trained him to be and the man he actually wanted to be. Between the drive to win and the desire to be good. Between success and meaning, and I couldn't fight that battle for him.
I could only wait. It took about a year.
Not in a dramatic way. There was no big moment, no crisis, though one was coming, but I didn't know it yet. It was more like slow. He called me one night and his voice sounded different. Not weak, but
less certain.
He mentioned that work was complicated, that there was a person on his team, someone new, and he was having trouble managing them. Someone who just wouldn't work the way he expected, wouldn't push hard enough, kept wanting to collaborate instead of compete. That sounds frustrating, I said. It is, he said. And then quietly, but they're actually doing good work, better work than the guy who left before them. I don't know how to be with someone like that. I didn't push, didn't give advice, just listened. Maybe that's okay, I finally said. Maybe different people do things in different ways. Maybe both ways can be right. He didn't respond for a second. Then, yeah, maybe you're right. We talked a little more and then he had to go. But something was shifting. I could feel it. Then about 6 months later, the real thing happened. He called me in the morning. His voice sounded shaky.
I knew immediately that something was wrong. Dad, can we talk? Like, really talk?
I might need to come by. Of course, I said. When? Tonight? He came over that evening. His wife wasn't with him. And when he walked in, I could see it. He looked like that kid in the backyard again, like he'd fallen and wasn't sure if he could get back up. We sat down in the kitchen.
I made tea the way his mother used to.
And he told me his job, all the success he'd worked for, it was falling apart. There was politics happening, people moving around, and he'd made some calls that didn't work out. He wasn't going to get fired, but he was being moved.
A step down, basically.
Different department, different role.
Less money, less status, and the worst part, he deserved it.
He knew he deserved it. He'd made decisions from a place of anger, from a need to prove something, and they'd been wrong decisions. I don't know what to do, he said, and his hands were shaking. Not like mine shake from age, his were shaking from fear. My whole life I thought if I just worked hard enough, pushed hard enough, that nothing bad would happen.
That I could just outrun everything. And now, he couldn't finish. I just watched him for a minute. This man I raised.
This successful, put-together man who looked absolutely lost. Now what? I asked quietly. Now I realize I have no idea who I am without that job, without the success.
And he swallowed hard. I'm scared, and I saw it. Finally, I saw it.
The moment he needed me most wasn't when he was up. It was now, when he was down, when all the armor fell off and he was just a person.
A scared person. I reached across the table and I put my hand on his. You know what I learned?
I said, a long time ago. When you were small? He looked at me. Falling isn't the bad part, I said. Being afraid is... But I'll tell you something else. Being afraid is also the part where you actually get strong.
Real strong. Not the armor kind.
The real kind. He started crying then. Just sat there and cried like that little kid again.
And I let him. I didn't tell him to stop. Didn't tell him to be brave.
I just sat there with him while he fell apart, because sometimes that's what strength looks like. After a while, he got himself together. Made a sound like a laugh, but it was sad. I'm sorry, he said. About what I said.
About you being weak. I know what you were, I said.
You were trying to protect yourself. You thought strength meant not needing anyone.
Not showing pain.
Just pushing forward forever. That's not true, he said. You showed that. You showed me I could do that. I showed you part of it, I said. The part about getting back up. But I didn't show you the other part. The part about knowing when to stop fighting, when to ask for help, when to let people in. He nodded slowly. I'm not mad at you, I said.
I was hurt.
But I am not mad.
'Cause I understand. I gave you armor and you wore it well.
You've done things I'm proud of.
But maybe
it's time to take some of it off.
See what's underneath. We sat there for a long time after that.
Just quiet. And in that quiet, something shifted between us again. Not back to how it was, you can't go backwards in time. But forward into something new. The next few months weren't easy for him. They were harder, probably, than anything he'd gone through before. Because for the first time, he couldn't just push through it. He had to actually feel it. He kept his job, but in this new role. Lower pay, smaller office. All the things he'd been afraid of.
And instead of running from it, he did something braver. He stayed.
He showed up every day and did the work. And slowly, something happened. He started to notice things he'd never paid attention to before. He noticed that people liked working with him more in this new position, that the smaller team had more heart. That one person he'd struggled with, they were becoming a real friend. They'd grab lunch, talk about things other than work. He started calling me sometimes just to talk. Not about work, but about life, about whether he was making good choices, about the person he wanted to be. And I realized that this was the conversation he needed to have all along. Not with someone telling him to be strong, but with someone who could ask him questions, help him figure out his own answers. And one day, he said something that made me stop what I was doing. "Dad," he said, "I watched you."
After I said those things,
I watched how you just
kept going, kept being normal.
didn't try to prove me wrong or make me feel bad. Just lived your life with your hands shaking and your back hurting, and you seemed okay with it, like you'd already proven everything you needed to prove. I didn't know what to say. I realized I was trying so hard to prove things to other people that I forgot to just live.
And I don't want to be like that anymore. Here's what I want you to understand about this whole thing.
It's not some neat tied-up story where everything gets fixed because the kid had a realization. Life's not that clean, but something did happen.
Something that matters. My son didn't become weak.
He became something stronger. He became someone who could be powerful and kind, who could be ambitious and thoughtful, who could admit when he was wrong, who understood that strength isn't about dominating the world, it's about understanding yourself. And me? I learned that being a father didn't end when he grew up. If anything, it got harder. Because now I had to watch him make mistakes.
Had to let him fall. I had to trust that the things I taught him when he was
small were deep enough inside him that he'd find his way. The hardest part of being a parent isn't the physical stuff. It's not
carrying them when they're small or making sure they eat right. That's easy.
The hard part is knowing when to push and when to let go, when to speak and when to stay quiet, when to protect them and when to let them get hurt. I made mistakes.
Plenty of them.
I was too hard sometimes, probably. I didn't show him enough softness. I was afraid that if I let him see me struggle, he'd think I wasn't strong anymore. But the paradox is this: the moments when I struggled most, when I let him see me human, those are the moments that actually mattered. Those are the moments he learned real strength from. Today my son is still ambitious, still successful in his way, but it's different now. He's building something that feels meaningful to him, not just impressive to other people. And sometimes, when we're together, I catch him watching me. The way I move, the way I handle my shakiness.
And I don't think he sees weakness anymore. I think he sees someone who lived a full life and earned the right to rest.
Someone who fought battles he doesn't even know about. Someone who loved him in the best way he knew how, which wasn't always perfect, but was always real. Last month, we were having dinner again.
Him, his wife, me.
And he was telling me about work, about a decision he had to make. Someone on his team was struggling, wasn't pulling their weight.
And I watched him.
I watched him think about it. "I'm not going to fire them," he said.
"I'm going to talk to them.
See what's going on.
Maybe they need something different, or maybe I need to manage them differently.
But just pushing them out because they don't fit my image of what strength is." He shook his head.
"I'm done with that." His wife smiled at him, and I felt something in my chest.
Pride, maybe, but also relief. Like something I'd been holding on to for years finally loosened. That's when he looked at me.
And he said, "I learned that from you."
"You know that, right?"
And I didn't say anything.
Didn't need to.
He knew. Here's what I figured out at the end of all this.
The thing that took me years to understand: every parent worries they're doing it wrong. You think about all the ways you might be messing up your kids, and you just have to trust that somewhere in there, the good stuff is sticking. The love is sticking. The lessons are sticking, but the real fight, the one that matters,
That's not against your kids or the world.
it's the one inside yourself. It's the fight between wanting to protect them and knowing you have to let them struggle. Between wanting to be right and knowing you have to be humble. Between being strong and being open. My son called me weak once, and he was looking at the wrong kind of strength. But I didn't have to prove him wrong. I just had to keep being what I was, real, honest, imperfect, and eventually he figured it out on his own. That's the thing about being a dad. You teach them how to get back up, but you also have to show them that getting knocked down isn't the end of the story. It's sometimes where the best part begins. I'm still here. My hands still shake.
My back still hurts.
I'm not as strong as I used to be, not in the way the world measures strength, but I sleep pretty well at night.
I know who I am. And more importantly, I know my son knows who he is too. He's not trying to be invincible anymore.
He's trying to be good.
And that's the thing I wish I could tell every young person. The world doesn't need more people who can't be broken.
It needs people who can be broken and still choose to love, who can fall and still help someone else get up. If you've got kids, or if you're trying to figure out who you are, or if you're struggling with what strength really means, just know this. It's not about being unbreakable. It's about being real. It's about falling and getting back up over and over until you understand that the falling wasn't the failure. The failure is when you stop trying. My son learned that, and I got to watch him learn it. And that's the strongest thing I've ever seen. If this story hit you, if it made you think about your own journey or your own relationships, subscribe.
Because there are more stories like this.
Stories about what it really means to be human.
What it really means to be strong. I'll be right here telling them. We'll see you in the next one.